Hey guys, Curtis Alexander. So in this video, let's talk about pro-metabolic eating. If you've watched any of my other past videos, you maybe know a little bit about my backstory, but let me just break it down for those of you who don't. I probably started eating low carb because of health problems I was having in 2003, 2004. And for the first few years, it was great. And then I started messing with it more and more and going more extreme and began to notice I wasn't losing weight as quick. I didn't have as much energy. So then I added in daily fasting and I went carnivore and I went vegan and I went extreme keto. But I was always extreme because I thought, well, if I decrease carbs and I felt better, then I need to really crank it back. And this went on and I finally hit a wall. I did this for a long time. I finally hit a wall probably in 2019 where I was cold all the time. I didn't have a lot of energy. I was working out, but not gaining any ground, not really building any muscle mass, and just really starting to struggle. And the scales fell from my eyes when I went to the doctor for my checkup. And my doctor's like, you have Hashimoto's thyroiditis, which is an autoimmune disorder where my body's attacking my thyroid. Uh, so my thyroid was completely out of whack. I wasn't sleeping very well, very stressed out, and just not doing that well overall. And the kicker was, she goes, oh, by the way, your fasting blood glucose is now in the diabetic range. And I was eating on a heavy carb day, I was 50 grams of carbs. A lot of days I was 20 to 30 grams of carbs. I was hardly eating any carbs. So how could I be in the diabetic range with my sugars? So that started me down the road where I kind of mentioned up here, I was wandering in the weeds. I couldn't figure out why I could be diabetic if I was low carb. I was told all the time I was fasting, I was low carb, but still felt like crap and was told I was diabetic. So, like a lot of things, doctors didn't have the answer for me. So I just started researching on my own, started figuring things out. And then I discovered this other world where they call it pro metabolic eating. I kind of hate that title. I would just call it natural eating. And ironically, it was the thing that I really started with when I first eliminated processed foods. I just ate natural foods. Not as good as I am now, but I was still pretty good. But then I just got wacky about it and got on these extreme diets. So over the last 2 years, I've followed pretty closely to a pro metabolic model. And my point in the video isn't to tell you what that is or anything else. I just want to give you my feedback on doing this for a couple of years, not only the pros, but the cons, because there are cons to doing this. Most of them are self-inflicted cons, and I'll talk about that. But I just want to break down my experience so you can make an informed decision. Hey, this is something that could help you. So let's hop into it. So first of all, the pros. My sleep has improved immensely. I used to wake up, not be able to go back to sleep. Sometimes that still happens. And my improved sleep, by the way, is not all pro-metabolic. There are other things I'm doing. I use a sleep mask. You can check out my video on that. I mouth tape. You can check out my video on that. But pro-metabolic has definitely had a huge effect on my sleep. So that's been great. Uh, I'm no longer cold. My temperatures, I'll measure my morning temperature. When I started a couple of years ago, my temperatures were high 96s, low 97s in the morning. That's very cold. And it's indicative of somebody with a slow metabolism. Um, I measured them the last few mornings just because I knew I was going to make this video. I run 98.3 to 98.5 in the morning. It kind of stays within that range. So I'm very seldom cold anymore. I used to be cold in a warm room all the time. It was kind of embarrassing as a guy. You're supposed to not be cold. It tends to be females saying that it's cold in the room or really hot, but I was cold all the time, and that's not the case anymore. I do have quite a bit more energy. And the next one, napping. I used to take a nap every day because I would get wiped out. I don't nap anymore. I very seldom will take a nap. So definitely have more energy, which leads to me having better workouts right now. I have an injury in my shoulder, also self-inflicted. So I'm not working out as much as I used to, but I have ample energy for my workouts. So it's been a huge plus that way. Better digestion. I never had a huge problem with digestion, but I did know, ideally you should be having a bowel movement going to the bathroom at least once a day, upwards of 3 times a day. And that sounds foreign to people, but if you look at more indigenous tribes throughout the world, that's commonplace for them to go to the bathroom that much. And I was starting to go every 36, sometimes 48 hours, which never happened for me before. So that was concerning. That's not the case anymore. My digestion is good. I don't have any issues consuming certain foods unless they're processed foods. I don't tolerate those well. So digestion and just overall, I feel better. And people get, I'll make videos or talk to people about nutrition and diet, and people, there's so much information out there that people, A, they get confused, and B, they glom onto a diet and then they tie their identity to it and they won't let go of it. And I was the same way. If you would have talked to me 10 years ago, I would have been like, low carb's the best thing ever. It can't do anything wrong. Insulin's the enemy. And I was wrong. I just flat out wrong. And it took me experiencing some of these problems for me to finally go, I screwed up. And this is a much more holistic way to eat. Like I said, I just feel better. So now the cons, okay? Weight gain. If you look anywhere in the pro-metabolic community, weight gain, when people transition to pro-metabolic, it's a common complaint, and it was with me in 2020. I'm just shy of 6'2". 2020, I weighed, let's call it 200 pounds, 195 to 200. By the beginning of 2022, I had jumped up to almost 225 pounds. I was 224, so I gained a ton of weight. But I say it's my fault because instead of, I can tell you right now, if you're considering going to pro-metabolic from a low carb environment, you have to go slow. You can't just add in foods. I literally, when I was low carb, when I was tracking calories, I at the end was eating barely 2,000 calories a day for a guy my size, and I was gaining weight, getting cold, sleep issues. My metabolism had cranked way down. So I just started eating. When I went pro-metabolic, I kind of went hog wild. It was a huge mistake. I was on some days 3,000 to 3,500 calories. My metabolism wasn't ready for that. I'm still working back. I'm down roughly 10 pounds now from my high, but I have to go slow because of my thyroid problems and my metabolism. I can't crash diet or I'm going to screw things up all over again. So if you're going to do this, you have to go very slow. Okay, just keep that in mind. The transition can be tricky, even more so than the calories, because you may have to experiment with some foods, and that kind of leads into my next point. For certain people, foods can be problematic because a metabolic food, for example, is dairy, um, good dairy, preferably raw dairy. But for some people, they have problems with that. But I will also say people who generally struggle with dairy often have a little bit of leaky gut going on, some inflammatory components. So don't be too quick to blame it on dairy. Another one, sourdough, if it's good, homemade, properly fermented sourdough. But some people don't tolerate the grains. So you are going to have to kind of mess with some of these things and experiment. I know I did. So that's something to keep in mind. The transition is not seamless when you do this. And then patience. Like I said, I kind of went hog wild for a year and a half, 2 years, gained a bunch of weight, felt better, ironically. I felt much better, but I gained weight and that bugged me. And now I'm experimenting with things. My metabolism is higher. I'm losing weight eating probably 25 to 2,800 calories a day. I don't track every day now. I kind of have a pretty good idea of what I'm eating. And so now it's kind of eating. When I want to lose a little weight like I am now, I'd like to get down to about 205. I do trim back my calories, but not extreme. Like I won't ever go below 2,500 calories. I'll do that for 2 or 3 weeks, go back to maintenance, and then in a little bit, drop those calories again. At the same time, I'm trying to build muscle so I can eat more, so I can restore my metabolism, and I'm eating foods. That's a whole idea of pro-metabolic. You're eating foods that are going to help your thyroid function. By the way, my thyroid function, I'm no longer on medications. I don't seem to have any signs or symptoms based off my temperature and my pulse and just outward symptoms of the Hashimoto's anymore. But that's why I have to be careful. Some other people can go faster. Okay, so I hope this was helpful for you guys. I'm a fan of this type of eating. And by the way, I have another video that goes over some more foods that are considered metabolic. So check that out. And make sure, go to the link in the description where I go over other natural things like this that have really helped me. And it's just a free checklist. It's yours. Just go grab it. But this has been helpful for me. So if you're interested in kind of making this transition or learning more, just, drop a comment. I'll do the best I can to help out. And, you know, speaking of helping out, I hope this video helped you, and I will see you in the next one, guys. Thank you.